So, they did it. They created another season of the Halo TV show. Only this time, was it not as bad? Okay, let me elaborate. In my previous video, I discussed the entire first season of the Halo show, but I quickly started bashing it and stating so many awful things about it, like I actually despised it. So I could have quit right there, but I became curious, since they replaced some of the original showrunners. And let me just say, it was alright. It was better in certain ways. The first season was nothing like Halo to me, as I explained in my previous video. However, this time, they actually did some nice things. Kinda. There was some character development, good action moments, an okay narrative, and to be honest, better CGI. But I still don't like the series all that much, and I wish it was handled differently. You see, what this season did was a nice start in the right direction, but it didn't capitalize on the opportunities that could have made it even better. I'll explain. The narrative was engaging, especially because we were left with these cliffhangers from the first season with our primary characters, and we continue to follow said cast in this current season, which still feels unsatisfying. Given that this series is about Halo, it should be the main focus, as well as the characters who are connected to it. What they did was find ways to shoehorn these guys into roles where they could be like the Avengers or something and do some cool stuff. I don't know about you, but that isn't Halo to me. The show should have concentrated only on Master Chief, the Spartans, and the UNSC members. This would have been an excellent opportunity to tell the story about the Covenant. I mean, come on. The Arbiter in this show might have been another character who would have added more depth to his purpose and the religion that he fosters, as well as more information about their species in general. Wasted. I will admit that the fall of Reach was not a bad idea, but the execution might have been better. I just felt like the invasion should have been more intense, like in Halo Reach. Our way of existence is being reduced by stronger beings who treat us as trash to be butchered and glassed. This show hardly scratched the surface. Then it would feel brushed over until Master Chief arrives at the Halo, which I'll talk about later. This series should have been about Reach. Instead, they had to find a way to talk about the Forerunners and the corruption of the UNSC, which I get. But then there are the side characters who make it feel so excessive after trying so many storylines in a complicated manner. While I didn't mind the UNSC corruption plot, because it was cool to watch Chief prove himself to be the best Spartan for a reason, it was tough to understand this without revealing more of the disaster that unfolded, as most of the UNSC simply abandoned their own people to perish on Reach. I understand the story must have conflict, but the biggest conflict was the Covenant discovering the Halo first and controlling it, which was barely a footnote in this series. The second season, like the first, contains few action scenes to stress that they are at war and should concentrate on their goal of assisting people from other planets in fighting the Covenant. I would like to reiterate that if this was going to be a war on Reach, employ different characters. Don't just butcher Master Chief anymore. He's had enough. So, after watching this series, I realized that the new showrunners were attempting to accomplish, particularly with the same characters from the previous season, by connecting their narratives to the Halo in some way. I can absolutely say that it took a lot of effort to build these characters and their arcs in only 8 episodes. While they did their best and hoped that people would still care about them, I can only say that they were tolerable at times. But they are constantly seen torn between options or picking a side for the sake of drama. Soon, everything began to make sense to me as they all started to connect specific occurrences with each character in order to regroup and fight together. But I also became aware of how they all ended up leaving John so we could have that season finale. However, this bothered me because the placement of all the people in each scene appeared rushed or sloppy. Speaking of which, how were the characters this time? I remarked that I loathed Master Chief in this show from the moment he removed his helmet. I didn't like how he was presented, and it felt so out of character. In this season, he was bearable. I mean, the concept behind the series was that he was always the poster boy for the UNSC. So when he begins thinking for himself and others and wants to stop the Covenant, everyone's all like, nah, you're crazy. I think you should shut up. Almost everyone hated him or thought he was nuts after fighting the Covenant in the first season. It just seemed inconsistent and weird to me. That being said, I believe the writers were tasked with rewriting the same character from the first season while ensuring that his actions were reasonable rather than inconsistent or reckless. As a result, there were times when he would actually stop chatting and do something other than sit there and watch people die on Reach. By the way, not having armor during this time was a huge disappointment. Like, we couldn't have a backup or even an alternative version such as traditional combat evolved approach. What are we doing? Come on, that would have been awesome. Again, a lot of lost opportunities. Cortana is very similar to the first season, but she is presented exactly as the games intend. She learns more from her opponents, acquires information and wisdom, and of course overrides access to aid Master Chief. By the way, it was stated that Cortana cannot be abducted or taken from the Covenant since she might be exploited for human plans and resources, which is ironic given that this is exactly what occurs in this series. Great job, guys. 10 out of 10. My primary issue with Cortana is that she reminds me more of the Weapon from Halo Infinite than from prior Halo games, where she had more personality, was bright and snarky, and even formulated strategies because she was supposed to assist the UNSC. Instead, Cortana in this show is dry and lifeless at times, and she serves no purpose to anyone other than Chief and Dr. Halsey. Now, the rest of the Spartans were all well developed in this season, but it was unfortunate that they all had to step down or were tragically killed in action. I loved them because they all had true personalities that you could relate to and understand. They begin to struggle and demonstrate humanity rather than acting like a machine. I'm not sure, but they felt more important than the Chief. Another thing I was unhappy about was the death of Admiral Keyes.
Why?
I understand. He makes a huge commitment, and I understand this is different from the games, but no Pillar of Autumn? No next season's introduction of the Halo in all its magnificence? Alright then, okay, fine. Be that way. Quan, Soren, and the other supporting casts are once again unneeded, as Soren is dealing with family issues. Quan, on the other hand, knows how to fight 6 months after the first season, and it's probably because of Soren. It's never explained. But how? How in the 7 Halo rings did Makee survive? This is never addressed, and she returns after being shot in the previous season, and then, with no backstory, no explanation, it's not even an illusion, she reappears. She just reappears, and we're all supposed to be okay with that? We're all supposed to accept it? I've loathed this character. She doesn't fit in anywhere on the show, and the notion that she has a connection to Halo is silly to me. It perplexes me that they would bring her back to act like Thanos and handle everything herself. By the way, 343 Guilty Spark is here, and he looking spiffy. Now, I'd like to highlight the portions of the series that I thought were very decent. I'm at least impressed with how they translated some of the plot lines. I'd also like to convey my personal thoughts on the lore we learned from the show. I admired how they depicted the Forerunners in this series. They were always this mysterious species that existed before humans. But I enjoyed how they used the adaptations that they were a mixed race of aliens and humans that left their technology behind and the Halo ring for humanity. Now, the way they showed their technology was incredibly cool. They used the game's set pieces and architects, and they look exactly like they do in Halo Infinite, which was cool to witness in live action. This still raises the topic of the Blessed One because I think it's strange to have, and it makes it appear as if they only needed one type of person to use the Halo. The Spartan 3s were another standout from this entire thing for me. The way they served in this episode was intriguing, and their involvement in the plot seemed more logical because they needed more soldiers to combat the enemy. Therefore, they maintained the Spartan program to develop more Spartans. Except they weren't augmented like Master Chief and the first Spartans, so they're more cheap and expendable in this episode where they appear. But I thought it would have been more appropriate if they were ODST or something because they barely appear in this series unless they forgot they exist. Despite the fact that they were just a few battle scenes this season, they were significantly better. The battles between the Spartans and the Covenant felt more violent and grounded. The combat between Master Chief and the Arbiter looked good and felt exciting as they squared off. The Flood in this series was actually really awesome. I'm just disappointed that they only appeared in the final episode, because it felt like if they had been introduced earlier in this season, they would have made an insane threat to everyone, showing the horror and unpredictability of what they could do to anyone, how they infect someone and make them all bloated and disfigured. I'd rather see them infect the Covenant next, making it 10 times more terrifying. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm excited to see if they do any horror scenes with the Flood in the following season if it happens. Alright, the moment you've all been waiting for finally occurred in this season's last episode. The Halo. After 17 episodes, they eventually put Chief on the ring. When Chief crashed there, they actually used the leitmotif, and they even included a small reference to Chief holding his helmet while admiring the scenery. But alas, that was short-lived. Then we could only see it for a split second before returning to everyone else, as if they all meant something other than what the Halo series was all about. Again, this would have worked better if they hadn't combined so many unnecessary elements, such as the fall of Reach, these side characters, and attempting to tie it all together with Halo, as it felt like you didn't get to witness the gravity of their home being glassed, losing so many lives only to ignore it to travel to the Halo ring next. I didn't understand what the show was trying to do in those moments, because there were actual people on Reach who said, "Screw them, I'm out of here," rather than fighting. It's also the major reason Cortana was created and Chief was chosen, to ensure that all of mankind survives and that they may find and learn about the Halo. So no Noble Six or Spartans stayed behind to give their life for Reach. None of that. I mean, Vanek tried, but it wasn't enough to make it feel worthwhile to watch. The only thing left to do is wait and watch how they will portray the Halo ring next. Finally, I'd like to mention that this series would have been better if they added George.